25 black child actor with tragic lives. They were rich, famous, and adored before they even hit puberty. But what happened after the spotlight faded will leave you stunned. From secret illnesses and fatal betrayals to scandalous downfalls and forgotten legacies, these 25 black child stars went from beloved icons to tragic headlines. This isn't just about fame, it's about the brutal cost of being young black and in Hollywood. At Legends of Black Excellence, we uncover the stories others won't tell. Ready to see the truth behind the smiles? Watch until the end, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more hidden chapters of Black excellence and tragedy. Lee Thompson Young. Lee Thompson Young was more than just a teen heartthrob. He was a rising force in television whose talent and charisma captivated a generation. Born on February 1, 1984 in Columbia, South Carolina, Lee's breakout role came at age 14 when he starred as the titular character in Disney's The Famous Jet Jackson. With his natural screen presence and genuine warmth, he quickly became one of the most beloved young actors of the early 2000s. While Lee's early success was dazzling, it also came with heavy emotional weight. The pressures of growing up in the spotlight often go unseen, and for Lee that meant internalizing expectations, criticism, and isolation. After his Disney success, he sought to transition into adult roles, appearing in TV dramas like Smallville and eventually earning a regular spot on Rizzoli and Isles. Despite his continued work, he faced the unspoken challenges of being typecast and quietly marginalized in an industry with few roles for black actors, especially those who began their careers as child stars. Behind his calm and kind exterior, Lee was privately fighting a relentless battle with bipolar disorder, an illness he never made public. The silence surrounding his mental health struggles meant he bore the burden largely alone. Friends and co-workers were stunned when on August 19, 2013, Lee was found dead in his North Hollywood apartment. The 29-year-old actor had taken his own life, leaving behind devastated fans and a grieving family who were unaware of the depth of his pain. Lee's death shed light on the urgent need for mental health awareness, particularly among young black men in high-pressure environments. His story is not only one of tragic loss, but a call for change, a reminder that even the brightest stars can be hiding unimaginable pain. His legacy lives on, not only in his roles, but in the conversations his life and death have inspired. Lark Voorhees. In the 1990s, Lark Voorhees was the embodiment of youthful style and sass. As Lisa Turtle on Saved by the Bell, she was a trailblazer, the only black main cast member in a hit teen sitcom that became a cultural phenomenon. Her confidence, comedic timing, and iconic fashion sense made her a role model for young girls everywhere, and she seemed poised for long-term stardom. Born on March 25, 1974 in Nashville, Tennessee, Lark began acting at a young age, landing commercial work before rising to television fame. While Saved by the Bell secured her place in pop culture, she struggled to find equally meaningful work after the show ended. Despite guest appearances in series like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and In the House, the momentum of her early success slowly faded. The real heartbreak came years later when the public began to witness noticeable changes in her demeanor. In 2012, her mother revealed that Lark had been diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, a complex mental health condition that combines symptoms of schizophrenia and mood disorders. The revelation stunned fans, but it also explained her increasingly erratic public appearances, flat speech, and disconnection in interviews. The industry turned its back, and she became a target of ridicule rather than support. Her personal struggles were magnified in the media, with little compassion shown for the depth of her illness. In 2015, she entered a short-lived marriage with Jimmy Green, a man with a controversial background, which ended within months amid reports of instability and chaos. For years, Lark lived in seclusion, absent from reunions, and largely ignored by the Hollywood machine that once praised her. Her story is a harrowing example of what happens when the industry fails to care for its own. Though she has expressed interest in reconnecting with former castmates and reviving her career, the journey remains uphill. Lark Voorhees reminds us that mental health deserves empathy, not mockery. She was once the jewel of Saturday morning TV, and her fall from grace should serve as a wake-up call to recognize respect and protect the minds behind the smiles. Raven Simonet. Raven Simonet was a television prodigy who achieved what few child actors ever do: crossover success across multiple generations. Born on December 10, 1985 in Atlanta, Georgia, she first entered American households as the precocious Olivia Kendall on The Cosby Show at just 3 years old. Her humor, wit, and infectious charm turned her into a fixture of family entertainment. But it was on the Disney Channel where she became a household name again, this time as the star of That's So Raven. As Raven Baxter, she broke barriers, becoming one of the first black female leads in a major youth network series, showing young viewers that quirky, smart, and stylish girls of color could be the center of the story. Despite her achievements, Raven's adolescence and early adulthood were fraught with challenges. Growing up in the public eye meant having every aspect of her life scrutinized. Her body, her style, her behavior, none were spared from the harsh lens of fame. The pressure to conform to a marketable image led to years of internalized stress and self-questioning. When she publicly came out as a lesbian, the backlash from conservative audiences was swift. Once viewed as America's sweetheart, Raven was suddenly at the center of public discourse that questioned her lifestyle opinions and place in the industry. But rather than shrink from the backlash, she leaned into activism and authenticity. Her time as a co-host on The View allowed her to voice her perspectives unapologetically. Whether addressing race, gender, or personal identity, Raven refused to be boxed in. Still, the cost of speaking out was high. She faced constant criticism and sometimes unfair treatment in the press. Raven Simonet's journey is one of evolving identity, resilience, and transformation. She wasn't just a child star. She became a vocal advocate for being one's true self no matter the cost. Her legacy is still unfolding, but her strength in challenging Hollywood's narrow definitions makes her not just a survivor, but a pioneer. Gary Coleman. Gary Coleman's rise to stardom was as fast as it was unforgettable. Born on February 8, 1968 in Zion, Illinois, he became a household name portraying Arnold Jackson in the hit sitcom Different Strokes. His famous catchphrase, "What you talking about, Willis," became a cultural staple. Despite standing only 4 feet 8 inches due to a congenital kidney disease, Coleman's charisma and comedic instincts made him larger than life on screen. At his peak, Gary was one of the highest-paid child actors in television, earning $100,000 per episode and amassing an estimated $18 million in earnings. But the fairy tale ended behind the scenes. Trusted adults, his adoptive parents and business manager, embezzled most of his fortune. Legal battles in 1989 exposed the betrayal, but the court only awarded him a fraction of what was lost. By adulthood, Gary was broke, disillusioned, and embittered by a system that had used him up and tossed him aside. His health issues persisted, requiring ongoing dialysis and multiple kidney transplants. The physical toll was relentless. Meanwhile, his career spiraled. He was often typecast and ridiculed in tabloids. Hoping for normalcy, Gary married Shannon Price in 2007, but their relationship quickly became toxic, marred by public altercations and accusations of abuse. In May 2010, tragedy struck. After falling down the stairs at his Utah home, Gary suffered a fatal brain hemorrhage. Despite his wishes to remain alive, Shannon made the decision to pull him off life support. He passed away on May 28, 2010, at age 42, alone, misunderstood, and a shell of the vibrant child America once adored. Gary Coleman's story is not just about faded fame, it's a devastating example of exploitation. He was a young black star used for entertainment and discarded when the spotlight moved on. His legacy is a cautionary tale demanding better protection for children in entertainment and greater accountability for those entrusted with their futures. Aaliyah Dana Houghton wasn't just a singer, she was a phenomenon. Born on January 16, 1979 in Brooklyn and raised in Detroit. Aaliyah's soulful voice and ethereal style redefined R&B in the late 90s. Her debut album, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, released at just 15, displayed a maturity far beyond her years. By 22, she had already achieved more than most do in a lifetime. Grammy nominations hit records like Try Again and Are You That Somebody, and a budding acting career that included starring roles in Romeo Must Die and Queen of the Damned. Her music was futuristic, her choreography revolutionary, and her fashion trend-setting. She seamlessly blended strength with softness, redefining what it meant to be a young black female artist. But behind the perfection was a young woman navigating immense pressure and a fast-paced industry. Aaliyah's early career was marred by a scandalous and illegal secret marriage to R. Kelly at just 15, an event that foreshadowed the vulnerability she would continue to endure behind her success. On August 25, 2001, while returning from a video shoot in the Bahamas, Aaliyah boarded a small Cessna aircraft overloaded with equipment and piloted by a man not certified to fly it. Moments after takeoff, the plane crashed, killing all 9 passengers on board. Aaliyah was just 22. The music world was stunned, and fans were devastated. The aftermath revealed troubling details about industry negligence cutting corners for speed and profit at the expense of safety. Aaliyah's death symbolized how even the brightest stars can be lost in an instant when carelessness and greed are involved. Her influence, however, endures. Artists like Beyoncé, Rihanna, and Drake have cited her as an inspiration. Aaliyah remains a celestial figure in music history, one whose life was short, but whose impact is infinite. Her voice may be gone, but her legacy sings forever. Lisa Left Eye Lopes. Lisa Left Eye Lopes was the wild spark that lit up TLC, one of the most successful girl groups of all time. Born on May 27, 1971 in Philadelphia, Lisa's creativity and fierce individuality helped define TLC's rebellious edge. With her eccentric fashion, bold raps, and emotional vulnerability, she brought a rawness to the group that complemented T-Boz's grit and Chili's smooth vocals. Albums like Crazy, Sexy, Cool, and Fan Mail weren't just hits, they were cultural milestones, selling over 65 million records worldwide. But Lisa's life wasn't just about music, it was about battles both internal and external. She clashed with media label executives, and even her own group members. In 1994, she famously set fire to her boyfriend's mansion during a heated argument, an impulsive act that turned her into a tabloid fixture overnight. Yet behind the headlines was a woman crying out for balance, healing, and truth. As fame wore on her, Lisa sought spiritual peace. She turned to holistic healing, studied numerology, and made repeated pilgrimages to Honduras, a country she believed held cleansing energy. She was filming a documentary about her journey to self-discovery in La Ceiba when tragedy struck. On April 25, 2002, while driving a Mitsubishi SUV with family and friends, Lisa swerved to avoid an obstacle in the road. The car flipped, and she was killed instantly. She was 30 years old. What makes Lisa's passing so haunting is that it came during a time of transformation. She had plans for a solo career, was actively healing and reconnecting with herself after years of chaos. Her death wasn't just a loss to the music world, it was a soul cut short, just as it began to mend. Lisa Left Eye Lopes will forever be remembered not only for her lyrical fire and fashion defiance, but for the depth and passion with which she lived. She never played it safe, and in doing so inspired countless artists to embrace their true selves, scars and all. Brandy Norwood. Brandy Norwood's voice defined an era. With her distinctive tone, flawless runs, and effortless blend of pop and R&B, she became one of the most celebrated artists of the 90s. Born on February 11, 1979 in Mississippi and raised in California, Brandy catapulted to fame with her 1994 debut album, Brandy earning platinum status by the time she was just 15. But she wasn't just a musical sensation, she was also a television trailblazer, starring in the sitcom Moesha, which offered a fresh and authentic portrayal of a black teenage girl navigating life, love, and family. Her duets with Monica, particularly the hit The Boy Is Mine, cemented her as a dominant force in the late 1990s. Yet behind the awards and glowing reviews, Brandy bore the weight of early fame, a grueling work schedule, and the expectation to remain a flawless role model. On December 30th, 2006, Brandy's life took a devastating turn. While driving on the 405 freeway in Los Angeles, she was involved in a multi-car collision that resulted in the death of a 38-year-old woman. Though never charged criminally, the incident ignited media scrutiny and multiple civil lawsuits. The emotional burden was immense. Brandy withdrew from the spotlight, consumed by grief and self-blame. In the years that followed, she struggled with depression and public skepticism. Once the golden girl of R&B, she now faced a world that seemed unwilling to forgive or forget. But true to her resilient spirit, Brandy didn't disappear. She quietly rebuilt herself. She returned to music with 211, took on acting roles, and in 2021 starred in Queens, showcasing her vocal and emotional depth once again. Brandy's journey is not just one of fame, it's a story of heartbreak, humility, and healing. She endured a tragedy that could have broken anyone, yet she chose recovery. Through it all, Brandy has remained a voice, sometimes silent, sometimes soaring, but always determined to be heard again. Orlando Brown. Orlando Brown once lit up the Disney Channel with boundless energy and undeniable talent. Born on December 4th, 1987 in Los Angeles, he earned recognition early on with his role as Eddie Thomas in That's So Raven, the wisecracking best friend who brought comic relief and youthful swagger. For millions of young viewers, he was the funny sidekick with real charisma and timing beyond his years. But when the laughter faded, Orlando's life veered sharply off course. Like many young entertainers, he faced the crushing challenge of growing up in an industry that rarely offers long-term stability. As opportunities dwindled, so did his ability to maintain direction. By the mid-2010s, his name was no longer linked to successful roles, but to headlines filled with disturbing allegations and erratic behavior. He experienced multiple arrests, ranging from drug possession to domestic disputes. In 2018, the public witnessed a worrying spiral as he delivered a series of incoherent interviews, sparking widespread concern about his mental health. At one point, he falsely claimed he was the father of co-star Raven Simoné's child, and made several bizarre statements that suggested he was living in a state of deep psychological distress. These weren't simply outbursts, they were cries for help. Eventually, Orlando admitted to battling substance abuse and unchecked mental illness. What followed was an unexpected act of courage. He entered a faith-based rehabilitation program and began the long road to recovery. Today, Orlando Brown continues working to regain balance in his life. While the path is uncertain, his determination to take accountability and rebuild offers a glimmer of hope. His story is a sobering reminder that fame, particularly for child stars, often masks inner battles. But it also proves that redemption is possible even after hitting rock bottom. Todd Bridges. In the 1980s, Todd Bridges was television royalty. As Willis Jackson in Different Strokes, he became part of one of the most iconic sibling duos in TV history. Born on May 27, 1965 in San Francisco, Todd was not just famous, he was adored. Millions tuned in weekly to see his charming, street-smart performances. But when the cameras stopped rolling, his real-life script took a much darker turn. The sudden halt of Different Strokes marked a jarring shift. Like many young actors, Todd found himself unprepared for life beyond the studio lights. Without the structure of regular work, he turned to cocaine and crack as a means of escape. Addiction quickly consumed him, transforming the once promising actor into a tabloid, regular, and courtroom fixture. In 1989, Todd was arrested and charged with attempted murder after a shooting involving a drug dealer. Though he was later acquitted, the legal ordeal crushed what remained of his public image. But perhaps the deepest wound stemmed from childhood trauma. Years later, Todd bravely revealed that he had been sexually abused by a trusted figure in his youth. This buried pain, he explained, had fueled his descent into self-destruction. Recovery wasn't instant. Years of relapses, failed comebacks, and media ridicule followed. But eventually, Todd made a resolute decision he would not be another cautionary tale. He got clean, started speaking publicly about addiction and abuse, and even appeared on shows like Celebrity Rehab to share his journey. Today, Todd Bridges is a survivor in the truest sense. He may never fully recapture his early fame, but his transformation stands as a testament to perseverance. In reclaiming his narrative, he became more than just Willis. He became a symbol of survival for anyone who's ever been written off. Meagan Good. Meagan Good was never just another actress. She was a force. Born on August 8, 1981 in Los Angeles, she started acting as a child in commercials and small television roles. But by the time she appeared in Eve's Bayou at just 16, critics recognized her as a rare blend of talent and presence. Her career blossomed in the 2000s with standout roles in films like Deliver Us, From Eva, Think Like a Man, and eventually Shazam, where she became a part of the DC superhero universe. Admired for her beauty grace and outspoken nature, Meagan became a symbol of strength for young Black women navigating identity, femininity, and independence. However, fame didn't shield her from pain. Behind her glowing image was a woman enduring private heartache and public judgment. In 2012, she married preacher and producer Devon Franklin in a union that inspired many. Their relationship was held up as a beacon of faith and modern love. But nearly a decade later, on Christmas 2021, the fairy tale ended in divorce. For Meagan, the breakup wasn't just about love lost. It was the collapse of a spiritual partnership that had defined her personal and professional narrative. As she processed the emotional aftermath, Meagan faced backlash from both conservative and feminist critics. Some accused her of being too secular, others too submissive. It was a lose-lose battle she never asked for. Meanwhile, in Hollywood, ageism and typecasting quietly chipped away at the career she had worked so hard to build since childhood. Rather than succumb, Meagan pivoted. She began producing mentoring and embracing roles that aligned with her evolving voice. Her journey reflects not a fall, but a shift. One where a former child star doesn't vanish into obscurity, but instead reclaims the pen to write her own story. Merlin Santana. Merlin Santana had everything going for him. Born on March 14, 1976 in New York City, to Dominican parents, he was a natural performer from a young age. Starting as a child model, he transitioned into acting with early roles on The Cosby Show and Getting By. But it was his portrayal of Romeo Santana on The Steve Harvey Show that cemented his place in the hearts of viewers. His charisma, humor, and easy confidence made him one of the most promising Black actors of the late 90s. By his mid-20s, Merlin had built a respectable resume in both TV and film. He was on the verge of major stardom, pursuing music and bigger screen roles. But fate had other plans, cruel, undeserved, and irreversible. On the night of November 9, 2002, Merlin was sitting in a parked car in South Los Angeles after leaving a recording studio with his friend. Unknown to him, he had become the target of a violent setup. A 15-year-old girl had falsely claimed that Merlin had made inappropriate advances toward her. Her boyfriend and another accomplice sought vengeance based on that lie, and one of them opened fire, fatally shooting Merlin in the head. He was just 26. The public was stunned. How could a rising star be gunned down so senselessly? The tragedy was compounded by the fact that Merlin had done nothing wrong. A fabricated story believed without question had cost him his life. In the aftermath, his killers were convicted, but no justice could bring back the life and career stolen that night. Merlin Santana's name faded from headlines, his legacy dimmed not by failure, but by the violence of others. He deserved so much more. Not just protection, but recognition for the talent, dignity, and promise he embodied. His death remains one of the most tragic and unjust losses in Black Hollywood history. XXX Temptation. Born Jose Dwayne Ricardo. Onfroy on January 23, 1998. XXX Tentacion was more than just a rapper. He was a lightning rod of emotion, controversy, and cultural shift. Emerging from the underground SoundCloud scene in Florida, he rose to fame with tracks like Look at Me Sad and Jocelyn Flores, which blended raw vulnerability with haunting beats. His music didn't follow mainstream trends. It carved its own path, capturing the mental anguish and isolation many young people silently battled. Despite his fame, Jossey's early life was marred by instability. Raised in a tumultuous household and cycling through juvenile detention centers, he grew up in survival mode. His childhood was one of trauma, making his rise to fame a rare but complicated triumph. But with notoriety came legal troubles. He faced allegations of domestic violence and other criminal charges that divided his fan base. To some, he was an abuser with a dark past. To others, he was a misunderstood youth trying to evolve. In the final months of his life, he had begun publicly speaking about growth, forgiveness, and mental health, pledging to change and uplift others. Tragically, that transformation was cut short. On June 18, 2018, at just 20 years old, XXXTentacion was fatally shot in a robbery outside a motorcycle dealership in Deerfield Beach, Florida. Surveillance footage showed him ambushed in broad daylight, gunned down for a Louis Vuitton bag containing $50,000 in cash. His death was as jarring as his music, abrupt, emotional, and impossible to ignore. Fans around the world mourned not just the artist, but the human being he was becoming. Whether seen as a cautionary tale or a voice of a broken generation, Jossey left a mark that cannot be erased. He sang the words others were afraid to say and died before his redemption could be written. Cameron Boyce. Cameron Boyce wasn't just a Disney Channel star, he was a symbol of joy, talent, and youthful inspiration. Born on May 28, 1999 in Los Angeles, he dazzled audiences with his roles in Jesse Grown-Ups and the Descendants franchise. Whether dancing, acting, or giving heartfelt interviews, Cameron exuded charisma and heart well beyond his years. Raised in a multicultural family with a grandmother who was part of the Clinton 12, the first African Americans to integrate public high schools in the South, Cameron understood legacy and responsibility. He used his platform not only to entertain, but to advocate. From ending gun violence to supporting clean water efforts, his humanitarian efforts were just beginning. What made Cameron's life so powerful was the contrast between his public vibrancy and the private struggle he endured. Diagnosed with epilepsy, he kept his condition mostly hidden, choosing instead to focus on his work philanthropy and connecting with fans. There were no headlines, no complaints, just a silent battle with a dangerous disorder. On July 6, 2019, Cameron died in his sleep after a seizure caused by epilepsy. He was only 20 years old. The world was stunned. How could someone so full of life vanish so suddenly? The shock wasn't just about his age. It was about how invisible his struggle had been. In the aftermath, the Cameron Boyce Foundation was launched by his family to raise awareness about epilepsy and continue his activism. It was a fitting tribute to a young man who always gave more than he took. Cameron's story isn't one of scandal or downfall. It's one of brilliance cut short by fate. He didn't fall from grace. He was taken before his fullest impact could be realized. His light lives on, reminding us that even those who seem unstoppable may be facing silent battles we never see. Marcus T. Polk. Marcus T. Polk was once a rising face of television, a child actor whose talent and charm brought life to the role of Miles Mitchell on the hit sitcom Moesha. Born on October 12, 1986 in Los Angeles, he grew up under the glow of camera lights and the expectations that come with early fame. As Brandy Norwood's on-screen brother Marcus was a standout, confident, funny, and effortlessly endearing. His performance resonated with audiences who saw him as both relatable and refreshingly natural. While Moesha ran for 6 successful seasons, Marcus seemed poised for bigger things. He took on additional roles in films like Roll Bounce and Another Cinderella Story, proving he could transition beyond his childhood success. But unlike some of his peers, Marcus never fully escaped the gravity of the child actor label. As he entered adulthood, the opportunities thinned and the industry seemed to look past him. In 2013, a troubling incident altered his trajectory. Marcus was arrested after allegedly assaulting his then-girlfriend during a heated altercation. He reportedly turned himself in after she suffered injuries requiring hospitalization. Though the case didn't dominate headlines, it cast a long shadow over his image. The scandal didn't just impact public perception, it severed connections in an already competitive industry. Since then, Marcus has remained largely out of the spotlight. Occasional appearances and small roles have kept him visible, but the career momentum he once enjoyed has never quite returned. Unlike some who fade quietly, Marcus's story is tinged with the pain of self-sabotage, a moment of recklessness that derailed what could have been a much longer legacy. Today, his name evokes both nostalgia and disappointment. The boy who once lit up sitcom screens has become an example of how quickly talent can be eclipsed by personal turmoil. His story reminds us that potential alone isn't enough to endure in Hollywood. It must be matched with disciplined growth and sometimes a second chance. Jaleel White. To millions. Jaleel White will forever be known as Steve Urkel, the eccentric, high-pitched genius with suspenders and unmatched comic timing on the 1990s sitcom Family Matters. Born on November 27, 1976 in Culver City, California, White entered the role as a guest star. But audiences fell in love with his quirky portrayal, and he became the centerpiece of the show for nearly a decade. Behind the glasses and catchphrases was a skilled actor who had originally set his sights on more serious work. But Urkel's fame was meteoric and all-consuming. He was a global sensation adored by children and families alike. Yet as Jaleel grew older, he faced a problem few actors could imagine. He had created a character so iconic it consumed his career. Typecasting became his greatest enemy. Casting directors struggled to see him as anything other than the nerdy kid with a nasal voice and awkward dance moves. Despite efforts to distance himself, starring in dramas, producing, and even attending UCLA, he could never fully shake the Urkel shadow. The emotional toll was immense. Jaleel has spoken candidly about how fame warped his adolescence. He missed out on a normal childhood, became a workaholic in his teens, and struggled with the industry's reluctance to let him evolve. Public curiosity around his personal life, including a difficult co-parenting situation, only added to the pressure. Still, he didn't give up. Over the years, White made guest appearances in shows like The Game, Dreamgirls, and Atlanta, proving he had range far beyond the suspenders. In 2021, he even launched a cannabis brand, a bold reinvention of his public persona. Jaleel White's story is not one of collapse, but of constraint. He wasn't ruined by scandal or tragedy, he was boxed in by his own brilliance. And while Steve Urkel may always follow him, Jaleel continues striving to define himself on his own terms. His journey is a bittersweet portrait of how one unforgettable role can be both a gift and a lifelong burden. Emmanuel Lewis. In the 1980s, Emmanuel Lewis was a household name. As the star of Webster, he captivated audiences with his heartwarming smile, comedic timing, and unique physical stature, standing under 4 feet tall due to an undiagnosed growth condition. Born on March 9, 1971 in Brooklyn, New York, Lewis became a symbol of innocence and optimism, charming viewers across America with every episode. Unlike many of his peers, Emmanuel didn't grow up in scandal. He wasn't the subject of legal troubles or personal implosions. Instead, his disappearance from Hollywood was defined by something equally haunting: silence. When Webster ended in 1989, Lewis gradually faded from public life. He didn't chase fame or plead for a comeback. He simply stepped away. The absence was deafening. For a figure so beloved, his retreat from the spotlight felt almost unnatural. He enrolled in Clark Atlanta University, choosing higher education over red carpets. But despite a few cameo appearances over the years, including reality shows and commercials, he never recaptured the momentum of his childhood fame. There's a mystery in Emmanuel Lewis's legacy. Was it a personal choice to walk away? Or did Hollywood have no place for a former child star who didn't conform to industry norms? Either way, he became a symbol of what happens when fame ends, not with scandal, but with stillness. Today, Lewis lives quietly, occasionally reappearing at nostalgic reunions or in interviews, but largely keeping his private life out of the headlines. His story is a rare one, a cautionary tale not of excess, but of erasure. A boy once adored by millions, now largely forgotten by an industry that moves too fast and looks back too little. Malcolm Jamal Warner. Malcolm Jamal Warner was once one of television's most respected young talents. As Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show, he embodied the cool, intelligent older brother every family wanted. Born on August 18, 1970 in Jersey City, New Jersey, Malcolm grew up under the mentorship of Bill Cosby, gaining early access to fame, discipline, and the inner workings of a major TV hit. But Warner didn't rest on nostalgia. After the show ended in 1992, he transitioned into directing, producing, and landing acclaimed roles in series like Suits: Read Between the Lines, American Crime Story, and The Resident. He even earned a Grammy Award in 2015 for Best Traditional R&B Performance, proving his creative talents extended well beyond acting. Despite his consistent body of work, Malcolm's career trajectory was inevitably shadowed by the fall of Bill Cosby. As Cosby's reputation collapsed under dozens of sexual assault allegations, Warner, though entirely uninvolved, found himself dragged into uncomfortable proximity. The public began to associate the wholesome legacy of The Cosby Show with betrayal and predation, and as Theo Warner became collateral damage in the court of public opinion. His silence during the early stages of the Cosby scandal was interpreted in conflicting ways. Some accused him of complicity for not denouncing his former TV father, while others defended his right to privacy. Eventually, Warner spoke carefully, expressing heartbreak while refusing to let Cosby's actions erase the show's cultural impact. The tragedy of Malcolm Jamal Warner's career is not one of self-destruction, but of association. He built a body of work that should stand tall on its own, but instead, he has had to navigate unjust suspicion and buried opportunities, all because of someone else's fall from grace. Still, Warner endures with dignity, versatility, and the quiet strength of a man who refuses to be defined by another's sins. His journey serves as a reminder that sometimes in Hollywood, guilt by proximity is all it takes to stain even the cleanest legacy. Alfonso Ribeiro. Alfonso Ribeiro's legacy in pop culture is cemented in one unforgettable performance, the Carlton Dance. Born on September 21, 1971 in the Bronx, New York, he became a global icon through his role as Carlton Banks on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. With his sweater vests, Tom Jones obsession, and precise comic timing, Alfonso created one of television's most enduring characters. But in doing so, he unknowingly built a persona that would haunt his career. Before Fresh Prince, Alfonso was already a gifted performer. He danced on Broadway, starred in Michael Jackson commercials, and earned praise for his talent at a young age. But no matter how wide his skill set, the entertainment world narrowed him to one role. His attempts to branch out, whether through directing, acting in lesser-known series, or launching game shows, were constantly met with Carlton references. Even his real-life triumphs, such as winning Dancing with the Stars in 2014 and hosting America's Funniest Home Videos, were viewed through the lens of nostalgia. While millions still cheered his performances, few were willing to let him evolve beyond the character he created decades earlier. Behind the scenes, Alfonso has spoken candidly about the frustration of being typecast, of putting in the work only to be reduced to a single dance. The Carlton persona, while beloved, became a cage, one that stunted the full range of his artistic potential. Alfonso Ribeiro's story is not one of collapse, but of stagnation. A man of immense talent and charisma, he remains confined by the memory of his greatest role. He is a performer who never truly failed, but also never escaped the shadow of the one thing he did too well. Keshia Knight Pulliam. Keshia Knight Pulliam made history at just 6 years old. Born on April 9, 1979 in Newark, New Jersey, she became the youngest actress ever nominated for an Emmy for her role as Rudy Huxtable on The Cosby Show. Her portrayal of the youngest Huxtable sibling was the heart of the series, endearing, witty, and full of charm. She was more than just a character. She was a symbol of Black excellence in family television. But when the show ended in 1992, so did her prime spotlight. Unlike many child actors who stumble into controversy, Keshia's story is different, marked not by public scandal, but by quiet exclusion. Despite graduating from Spelman College and attempting to return to acting, she found herself locked out of major opportunities. Roles dried up. The public and the industry struggled to accept her outside of her childhood role. Her appearance on Celebrity Big Brother in 2018 offered a brief reintroduction to audiences, but her attempts to redefine herself were often met with indifference. When she married former NFL player Edgerton Hartwell in 2016, hopes of a fresh chapter seemed possible. But just months later, they were embroiled in a messy divorce, filled with allegations, custody disputes, and courtroom drama. Instead of support, Keshia faced harsh judgment and media scrutiny. The same media that once celebrated her childhood innocence now dissected her personal pain with little empathy. She had grown up, but Hollywood refused to grow with her. Keshia's life is a sobering illustration of how the industry forgets its brightest young stars once they age out of their innocence. Despite her efforts, talent, and grace, she remains locked in the memory of a role she played decades ago, struggling to be seen as more than little Rudy. Her story reminds us that sometimes the entertainment industry doesn't crush dreams, it simply forgets the people who once embodied them. Kim Fields. Kim Fields wasn't just part of television history, she helped define it. Born on May 12, 1969 in New York City, Kim captured hearts nationwide as Tootie on The Facts of Life, one of the most beloved sitcoms of the 1980s. With her roller skates, pigtails, and plucky spirit, she stood out as a beacon of youthful charm and representation. Later, she matured gracefully into her role as Regine Hunter in Living Single, proving she had staying power beyond childhood stardom. Behind her sunny persona, however, Kim faced private battles that rarely made headlines. Though she managed to avoid scandal, her personal life endured fractures that left deep emotional scars. In 1995, she married film producer Jonathan Freeman, and the union seemed promising. But it quietly ended in divorce after 6 years, a difficult transition for someone raised in the public eye. Her second marriage to actor Christopher Morgan brought renewed hope and the joy of motherhood. Yet in 2022, Kim stunned fans when she filed for divorce after 15 years together. The announcement reflected not just the end of a relationship, but the closing of a chapter defined by perseverance through emotional storms. Professionally, Kim remained active, balancing acting, directing, and reality television appearances including Dancing with the Stars and The Real Housewives of Atlanta. Yet despite these efforts, the industry's interest waned. She was no longer Tootie to a new generation, and roles became harder to secure. Kim Fields is not a fallen star, but a quiet warrior. Someone who rose young, stayed dignified, and endured heartbreak without spectacle. She's a reminder that even in the absence of tabloid drama, the emotional toll of life after childhood fame can be deeply profound. Ralph Carter. Ralph Carter was once the voice of a movement. As Michael Evans, the socially conscious, sharp-tongued youngest son in Good Times, he brought a rare blend of intelligence and conviction to American TV. Born on May 30, 1961 in New York City, Ralph wasn't just a TV actor. He was also a Broadway sensation before age 14, earning acclaim for his role in Raisin, and even releasing a soul album as a teenager. With fame came admiration. Ralph was hailed as a gifted young man destined for greatness. But after Good Times ended in 1979, something unexpected happened. He vanished. There were no major roles, no scandal, no bitter interviews. Ralph Carter simply walked away from Hollywood, choosing instead a life far removed from the glare of cameras. This disappearance raised questions for decades. Why would someone with such talent leave an industry where he had made such an impact? Speculation ranged from dissatisfaction with the roles available to young black men at the time to a conscious decision to focus on family and community over fame. In later years, Ralph occasionally appeared at fan conventions and reunion specials, expressing no bitterness, just distance. It became clear that he had found peace outside the industry content with a life of privacy. Unlike many child stars whose lives unraveled publicly, Ralph's story is quieter but no less tragic for its invisibility. He was a prodigy turned recluse, not because he fell, but because the industry offered him no space to rise further. His legacy lingers in reruns and nostalgia, yet he remains a question mark in black entertainment history. Ralph Carter's story is a rare case where the tragedy isn't in destruction, but in erasure. A bright star who dimmed not from failure but from disinterest, both his own and Hollywood's. And sometimes that's the saddest fate of all. Taj Mowry burst onto the screen in the late 1990s as T.J. Henderson in Smart Guy, a show that celebrated intellect, heart, and black family life. Born on May 17, 1986 in Honolulu, Hawaii, Taj portrayed a child prodigy trying to balance genius with adolescence. The show was critically praised, and Taj became a staple of Disney-era family television. Coming from a famous family, sisters Tia and Tamara Mowry also dominated 1990s sitcoms. Taj seemed destined for longevity. But as Smart Guy ended in 1999, so did the industry's focus on him. His boyish charm became a limitation as he tried to transition into adult roles. Audiences who loved him as a child couldn't see him as a grown-up performer. Unlike some peers who spiraled publicly, Taj's struggle was quieter, an erosion of opportunity. He released music, took voice acting roles, and made guest appearances, but none brought him back to the mainstream spotlight. Even in projects like Baby Daddy, where he returned to TV with maturity and confidence, he remained under-recognized. The emotional weight of being forgotten, despite early greatness, is a form of tragedy rarely acknowledged. Taj Mowry's career became an echo chamber, a cycle of attempted reinventions overshadowed by the role that made him famous. His story isn't about personal downfall, it's about a system that forgets those it once raised. Kyla Pratt was everywhere in the early 2000s. With her roles in Dr. Dolittle, The Proud Family, and Love and Basketball, she was the relatable girl next door with the talent to carry films and shows alike. Born on September 16, 1986 in Los Angeles, Kyla became one of the few black child stars to sustain a long streak of visibility in both live action and animation. However, that visibility came at a price. Growing up in the public eye meant constant judgment, not just of her performances, but of her body choices, and even her silence. As she matured, Hollywood shifted its attention elsewhere. Despite her continued work, including a return in The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, Kyla was never given the same spotlight she once owned. Adding to the pressure was the burden of expectations. Fans wanted her to be the same innocent teen they'd grown up with. When she became a mother and chose a more private life, critics began questioning her relevance. Online discourse dissected her decisions rather than honoring her consistency in an industry notorious for discarding black women. Kyla's story is one of quiet resistance. She never crumbled. She never caused headlines. And yet she was slowly pushed to the margins, a subtle erasure that speaks volumes about how Hollywood treats black girls once they grow into women. Janet Jackson's story might seem out of place among child actors, but her career began in childhood as Penny on Good Times and a regular on Different Strokes and Fame. Born May 16, 1966, into the iconic Jackson family, Janet's early fame came not from music, but from trying to stand on her own amid enormous expectations. Though she later redefined herself as a pop and R&B powerhouse, the scars of her upbringing never fully healed. She was a child performer expected to be perfect, in control, and never controversial. Yet the world turned on her in 2004, during the infamous Super Bowl wardrobe malfunction. In a matter of seconds, she became the scapegoat for a national scandal banned from radio stations and TV, while her male co-performer Justin Timberlake walked away unscathed. Despite a decades-long career of innovation and influence, Janet was publicly punished for a moment beyond her control. Her marriage to billionaire Wissam Al-Mana ended in 2017 after years of emotional turmoil, adding another layer of heartache to her already complex personal journey. Janet Jackson's tragedy isn't obscurity, it's injustice. A woman whose career spanned continents and generations, forced to bear the brunt of cultural double standards and media cruelty. Her pain is the kind endured by those at the highest peaks when the whole world is watching, but no one sees you. Shad Moss Lil Bow Wow. Shad Moss, better known as Lil Bow Wow, was a child rap prodigy who achieved superstardom by age 13. Mentored by Snoop Dogg and produced by Jermaine Dupri. His debut album, Beware of Dog, went double platinum in 2000. His music charisma and acting roles in films like Mike made him one of the most successful child entertainers of the 2000s. But stardom that early often becomes a trap. As he dropped the Lil and tried to mature musically and personally, the public didn't follow. He was mocked for trying to grow up, criticized for every misstep, and forced to chase a legacy that had peaked too soon. Financial troubles, online ridicule, and strained relationships further complicated his journey. Bow Wow challenge memes made him a laughingstock, turning his image into viral satire. He admitted publicly to battling depression, loneliness, and suicidal thoughts, an agonizing admission for someone once at the top. Despite attempts to reinvent himself through reality shows and hosting gigs, the industry still sees him as a former child star trying to hold on to relevance. Yet beneath the memes and missteps lies a young man who carried the weight of fame too early with too little protection. Shad Moss isn't just a cautionary tale. He's a human being who was treated like a brand and is still trying to reclaim his name. Fame doesn't always end in fortune. And for these 25 black child stars, it ended in silence, heartbreak, or tragedy. Were they failed by the industry, forgotten by fans, or victims of a system that only embraces black talent while it's profitable? At Legends of Black Excellence, we believe their stories deserve more than nostalgia. They demand justice, empathy, and reflection. Do you think Hollywood truly protects its young black talent? Or does it chew them up and spit them out? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more untold stories from Black history and entertainment.